Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So, I have a sort of little story to start this panel. And so, a couple of years ago, I met this guy called Daniel Marowitz. And Dan Marowitz is the youngest ever board member at Deutsche Bank. I'm talking about 3 geological eras ago, right? I was working for Swift. Dan Marowitz was, part of our advisory board. And then one day he calls me and he says, listen, I have a new job. I've been hired by Booking.com. I said, Booking.com? I mean, why? I mean, you're a banker, right? He said, yeah, well, they think that they can improve the bottom line by setting up a whole team of fintech experts for the credit and collection, the payments, Booking.com is in, 190 countries, etc., etc. Long story short, he hired 700 people in 3.5 years, and Booking.com bottom line was improved 3 to 5%. So if there is one, witnessing of how travel tech and fintech are crossing paths, I believe that could be a good start. So I'm super thrilled for this conversation. We discussed a lot what we should talk about behind the scene. And I propose that Caecilia starts by introducing herself and a little bit about YouTrip, and we do the same with Sandeep.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And it's truly a privilege to be here today and be part of the Singapore FinTech Festival. My name is Caecilia. I'm one of the co-founder and the CEO of a fintech company actually headquartered in Singapore called YouTrip. The inspiration really started back in 2016. At that time, both my co-founder and myself were actually working in China. So I was working for Lufax, which is a retail personal finance platform, and my co-founder was working for WeChat, the super app then in China. So what we saw then was the fact that every single person and every businesses were already exclusively using their mobile phone to manage all things money, from making payments, and of course way more beyond payments, like buying insurance, investing their money, and everything else. And so we thought we saw the future of where financial services going to be, but China was so saturated at that time. So that's why we moved to Singapore, and we wanted to be a first mover. We think that's super important to us. And the time when we come to Singapore, we were truly, the first, I guess definitely the pioneer of this space, because at that time no one actually put fin and tech together as one word. But the first thing that we felt when we landed here was every single person we met in Singapore, in Bangkok, in KL, and all these key cities were always talking to us about their travel trips, where you just came back from and where I'm going next. And even just now when I was walking through the exhibition, everyone was telling me, oh, where are you heading out tonight? Where are you flying to next month for Christmas? And there's so much excitement about travel, and we absolutely love it. But to be clear, we actually do a lot more than travel now. So we are one of the first company launching a multi-currency e-wallet here, first for consumer in 2018. And we have also launched UBiz, which is a multi-currency spend management platform for businesses 2 years ago. And currently, I believe we are the largest in Southeast Asia and processing about $10 billion on annualized level each year. And truly grateful to be here, and thank you for allowing me to share part of our story.
Sandeep, before you introduce yourself, perfection is boring, okay? So Singapore FinTech Festival is 99.999 perfect, and the 0.1% is the fact that the picture of Sandeep is wrong, okay? But it's fine, it's not his dad, it's just a little glitch. Sandeep,
it's a welcome gift. It's a welcome gift, if I can spot it. No, thank you so much for having me here. Look, my name is Sandeep Patil. I'm a partner with a fund called QED Investors. I head our investments into Asia. We manage about $4 to $5 billion. The current fund is about $1 billion fund aid that we are investing out of. We have invested around $200 million in Asia now. We have about 12 portfolio companies in the region. Globally, of course, we started in 2008. Famously, we were the first check into Credit Karma. So that was a big exit. New Bank was a big exit. Remitly is a big exit. of the 200 odd companies that we have invested in our lifetime, about 28 at some point or the other were unicorns, right? So fairly, very successful as a fintech fund. Otherwise, about me, I've been in the industry for 25 years now. I started my life with Capital One in the US, was a junior partner with McKinsey & Company's London office during the financial crisis and right after for a while. And then I was in India for a bit, group head of strategy for Flipkart when we raised the $4 billion round, was involved in the exit to Walmart. And then I was CEO of a company called Truecaller. Not many of you have heard of it because it's a Swedish company, but the biggest market actually is India and rest of Asia. And we had a 2.2 billion exit on NASDAQ. And that's when I switched to the dark side and became a venture capitalist.
In other words, we could have messed up with a smaller investor, right?
Exactly.
But that's fine. You know, that is the 0.001%. So I'll start with you, Sandeep. And so the title of this session resounds like embedded finance, you know, the mother of the embedded finance trend, right? Talk to us a little bit about how even the investment thesis at QED has been impacted by that.
Yeah, no, so I think the title is fantastic. Travel I see as a use case of embedded finance, and it's worth talking about the overall theme, right? What happens is we have seen the first maybe 2 or 3 waves of fintech already come through, right? I worked at Capital One back in sort of 99 to 2005, and arguably Capital One was the first fintech in the world, completely data-driven, completely technology-driven. That time fintech was not even a word, right? So what has happened over time is the innovation into payments, into basic lending, into basic insurance has already happened in multiple waves, right? So US is probably more advanced and it has gone into blockchain and other constructs like that, stable coins now. Whereas in Asia it's catching up, and we have seen the first wave of aggregators come through, probably the first wave of manufacturers now coming through, etc., etc. So if you project the picture forward, then the low-hanging fruit will be taken, right? And now you're getting into more specialized use cases. So as Caecilia was saying earlier, right, if you're traveling, you would want your money to work with your travel, right? You want your tickets at one place, you want your payments at one place, insurance at one place, any loans that you take on for travel, all of that to be in one place, your rewards programs to be managed in one place, so on and so forth. And it's not just travel, the same thing is true if you're a SaaS business owner, you'd have a specialist product going into that to help you with specialist financing. We obviously invest in a bunch of companies. We have portfolios in India, portfolios in US, portfolio companies in Europe, which do specialization. And we see this trend across existing portfolio countries and much more so in the new companies that are coming up. The logic always is once you get the customer, then you can sell them a bunch of products. That's always the logic.
And just to double click on this before getting to you, Caecilia, it is true as well that, you know, why travel? Because travel, you know, between the payment space all along, and then Caecilia will be sort of double clicking on this. But there is also like over-the-counter insurance for travels. There is the buy now, pay later for the checkout. And even the amount of data that the travel business is producing, you know, probably Booking.com potentially could be a lender to the hotels because they know exactly how many rooms, you know, are going to be booked and what's the capacity to reimbursement, right? So it's a constellation of opportunities.
Yeah. And if I may add, actually, so you touched upon a lot of data points, but it's also the people who tend to travel. Right, just look at this stage. Italian sitting in Singapore, Indian living in America, sitting in Singapore, from China sitting in Singapore, right? We all are travel prototype customers, right? And the fact is people who tend to travel are also early adopters of a bunch of other products, right? So it's about user behavior and the user segment that you're getting to. That makes this opportunity very, very interesting.
Caecilia, you deal with payments, you know, from the dawn to morning, okay? So, pretty much, exactly. What are the trends, you know, and how is combined with the stories that Sandeep was talking about?
Yeah, so you know, there are a couple trends that we are really excited about, and the reason why we love this cross-border payment space is because it's evolving so quickly. So there are 2 key trends that were most relevant to us. One is really the digitalization of money, and you know, not that long ago, actually just 4 or 5 years ago, people feel safer to carry some cash when they cross the border. I remember, you know, there was long queue outside of these money changers, and people thought if I'm going to Japan, if I'm going to a remote village out in Peru or in Thailand, they want to carry some cash. But what COVID had really changed is now people feel unsafe to carry so much banknotes, right? Where has this notes actually been? I don't want to touch it, and maybe it would got stolen. So I think the consumer preference have changed so much, and I think even the data we saw from our platform, the adoption of e-wallets, the digital payments platform, has really skyrocketed, and I think that's why that gives us a lot of confidence that our market share, our penetration within the traveler segment is going to continue to grow significantly going forward. And the other trend that we're excited about is really the proliferation of the payment method. So many years ago in traveling space, we're really talking about cash, traveler check, all that stuff. And then we have these cards, plastic cards, and then we have wallet-to-wallet payments. And now we have QR codes, whether or not it's developed by private companies, private networks, or government initiatives. So I think this continuation of evolution of payment methods, it's really a great thing because ultimately customers want more choice. And as a digital wallet, what we would going to do is actually to continue to integrate and partner with many more of these payment methods because we want to give the power of choice and the power of convenience in the hands of our customers.
Sandeep, before you build up, we agree on the backstage, Caecilia, that I can call you the Revolut of Asia, right? And you said, yes, I don't mind to be sort of in the same sentence of a $35 billion company, right? So cool.
45.
Exactly. So if you are the Revolut of Asia, so Revolut, as you know, they are monetizing way beyond payments, right? Which is also actually not very far away from the embedded finance topic that we were talking about, right? Because they are selling insurance, they are selling loyalty program, the way they monetize their card by associating a bunch of service. Is this the same trend that YouTrip is going?
Yeah, so it really brings us back to the original intent when we actually, started a business. Like I shared, at that time we were working in China. So my co-founder was working for WeChat. So we are most familiar with that business model. And what we realized was, as a product, where we want to be within financial services is where you have the highest and most frequent use case. And payment is, right? Because when you think about the different segment of financial services like lending, not everyone actually needs it, or even insurance, or investing your money. Not everyone actually do it, but payment is one thing that you actually have to do multiple times a day. It really gives you that frequency for us to build the stickiness we need as a digital product. So when we started a business, payments, e-wallet has always been the beginning point. We thought this is a great starting point because everyone needs it. We're able to use it to build a massive user base and very loyal user base. And with that, we can actually do a lot more. And also, to Sandeep's point earlier, the data that we got about our user, it's hugely valuable to us because we can see so much behavioral and also transactional data. We know where they spend, how they spend, what time they spend, in which country they spend, and all that really valuable information. So we felt it's really a privilege for us to be able to, in the position to see all this and really be in the position to help them solve more problems around their money, now that they have entrusted us with their real identity, with their, hard-earned money and stored in a wallet and being spent over time.
Perfect. No, I think that's fantastic point, right? I think data is very, very important. And we see this all the time. Like I sit on boards of a couple of neobanks, couple of credit card companies. And what we see very clearly is even for a regular customer living in country, something like 10 to 15% of the revenues, financial revenues, actually are travel related. Now, most of our customers are, if you think of growth markets like India, Indonesia, Brazil, South Africa, right? Most of the customers for fintechs right now are people who are maybe the top 5 to 10% households in that country, right? So the highest earning segment, within that segment, something like 10 to 15% of their revenues, of financial revenues, would be travel related. That would include payments, that would include lending, that would include insurance, all of that put together, right? So
Sandeep, I have actually a question that came to mind when we were talking about the fact that embedded finance brings different players to the game, right? So large corporations typically. So tomorrow, technically, you could be co-investing with Booking.com, right? On a deal, because thing is, co-investing with another VCs is one game. Co-investing with the corporate is a completely another game. Do you see this as a trend? And if you do, what do you think are the challenges?
Yeah, and Booking.com is a great example, right? Because it is a tech company, but has become more corporate over time, right? With all due respect, right? It's become more corporate over time. And you see that with everyone. Once you get to a certain valuation, 5 billion, 10 billion, whatever that sweet number is, you have to become a bit more structured, bit more process-oriented, bit more predictable, for lack of a better word. So we do see the trend, right? Because, see, as a VC, what are the successful exits for me? Right, successful, not the unsuccessful. Successful exits are IPO best, right? If IPO doesn't happen, then trade sale is the next best one, right? Which is a corporate coming in and buying your fintech and incorporating it in your existing business. And usually these acquisitions are about two things, right? The big player would usually bring distribution, they would bring customers, and they'd be acquiring smaller companies that are product verticals, right? So if someone has figured out how to give very good BNPL for flight tickets, let's pretend, right? So if someone has built that product, then Booking.com, that could be a fantastic acquisition to have, because on their payment page, they can show you credit cards and UPI and QR code-based payments and what have you, and then their own, that you can actually convert this into a loan right there and then and there. So you can monetize your customers a lot better. So we see that trend increasing as fintechs have become off note. They have become valuable enough that big companies will start looking at them in a meaningful way. Right? Now, how it is to invest with them, it's a mixed bag, honestly. It depends on the particular company and actually the particular team. Right? Nubank is one of our portfolio companies, and they are also investors into one of the neo banks that I'm an investor into. I sit on the board. They are an observer on the board. They are very valuable, fantastic people. They'll give insights from what they saw in Nubank as relevant to India for that particular company. So very, very valuable. They are also not very intrusive, so they would not try to peer into numbers and try to be a competitor or intrusive, actually, into the company. So very good board members. You could have bad cases also, right? I'm not saying everyone's great, but more often than not, the incentives are aligned, I would say. So it's not a position of conflict. Of course, the advice we give is slightly different, right? I want to still push the company towards an IPO, and they would want to wait for the right moment when it becomes more of an acquisition target rather than IPO candidate. So.
We have a few seconds left. Caecilia, any final word for this to close this panel?
Well, when we think about payment and fintech, the intersection of fintech and travel, actually, what we find most special is payment is actually one function that cut across every step along a traveler journey. And that really allows us to do a lot more over time. And when you think about a traveler before they travel, they need to make booking, right? Of course, Booking.com comes to play, buying your flights, buying your hotel, but that is really just a starting point from what we see, right? So when they're there, then they need to start thinking about where I eat, where I go shopping, and even after the trip, right? They may be splitting, the whole bill with their friends and family that they travel with, and how about the leftover currencies, right? Can I exchange it back to my home currencies and send it back to my bank account? So, why we love this business is because we felt we are there to help them across every step along their traveling journey, and what it means to us also is the opportunities, the untapped opportunities that we can provide much more travel focused or finance focused kind of features for them over time to add more value to their lives. So that's why we absolutely love what we're doing.
You made me think that I don't know if I will be able myself as a European citizen to download YouTrip, but I wish I could, because now I have plenty of cash, which by habit I took it out from the ATM, and I'll probably, very likely, bring it back to Europe. Thank you very much, guys. Join me in a big applause. We had fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.